Hey y'all, it's Lucy again with the second day of the Fairy House Challenge, and today we're going to make the Fairy Cottage. What I like about this one is it's just a simple shape, but what sets it apart is how you decorate it. So I just used some regular little blue flowers on it. I did put paper mache on the surface of the house to give it a wood grain, but it's just easy, and it looks like a house that a fairy would live in. So that's what we're going to do today, the fairy cottage. Alrighty, I'll see you in a minute. Let's get started making the fairy cottage, which is day number 2 in the whimsical fairy house challenge. So I'm cutting mine out with my Cricut Maker, and this is Cricut Design Space. So that's how I'm going to show you how to set up the file. First thing, let's go to New Project. We're on what's called the home screen, and I'm going over to the green button in the right upper corner, and that brings me to the canvas. I'm going to scroll down to Upload, which is in the lower left-hand corner. Upload. That brings me to this screen, Upload Image, green button on the left side, kind of in the middle. And that brings me to this one, Upload Image, where I browse or I can drag the file here. I'm going to browse. I'm on a laptop. It's just easier to browse. Here's day number 2, the Fairy House Cottage. And this is my file, Fairy House Cottage. I'm going to open it. And that sends the file to Cricut Design Space. This is the file I want. This is a new screen. They just updated this. So this is the file I want. It's an SVG file, scalable vector graphic. I'm going to continue with the green button in the lower right-hand corner. Upload. And now it's on Cricut Design Space. And I want to see my entire file. I do this pretty much every time because my files are, not real big, but kind of big. So I'm going to reduce the size on the screen. And let's see, can we see the whole file? Yes, this is my entire file. I reduced it to 75%. You can see it down here in the lower left-hand corner. So that lets me see my whole file. I'm going to ungroup it. That's pretty much the first thing you have to do anytime you're working with a file. So I'm ungrouping. Oops. They're ungrouping. Let's just make sure we are ungrouped. Yep. I've got my 1-inch scale. I can see that the file was uploaded at the correct scale because it says it's 1 by 1, and that's what the 1-inch square is. So I'm going to delete that. And then next, let's convert all these score lines into, change them from regular lines into score lines. So this is the chimney that fits on top, fits on one of the sides of the Fairy Cottage. So I'm going to go over to the Layers panel, scroll down to the chimney, and choose these lines. Those are my score lines. So I'm going to select them. So I'm only choosing them. And then I scroll over here to the Operations menu. I see the red box, which is always reassuring to me. It means that I drew my score lines in red, and they are indeed score lines. So now let's go to open up the Operations menu, go down to Score, select Score, and then I'm going to I can do this either two ways, select the entire object by just kind of clicking on it, or I can click on it in the Layers panel, and I can see that both pieces, the set of score lines and the piece that's to be cut out, are grouped together, and I'm going to attach them so that Cricut knows that these lines belong to this piece. Same thing with the roof piece. I'm selecting it, over to the Layers panel, choosing just the score line, then back over to the Operations menu, Going to the down arrow, score, and then I'm going to select the entire piece again and attach our score line to our roof piece. Let's do the same thing with the house. This is cottage shape. Doing the down arrow. These kind of funky little lines are the score lines on the Fairy Cottage. So now back over to the operations menu. Remember, we've got a nice red square. All my score lines are drawn in red, even though the Cricut doesn't show them. Scroll down to score. And you can see it says score right there. Choose the entire piece, attach. And let's see, I don't think I attached the, and you can tell you've been successful at attaching because it says attach. I didn't do that for the roof, so I'm going to select the entire piece again and attach. There. All right, so now I've got the entire file all set up. I make mine out of cardboard, so I don't have to worry about doing each piece in a different color, because I like to paint them. I don't always do that, but often I do. So if it's in cardboard, then I can probably cut the whole thing out on one sheet of 8.5 by 11 cardboard. Let's see. There are 5 windows, but the truth is one is a door. But I always cut out extra windows because they tend to disappear. My cats steal them. Okay, I'm going to select the entire group, and it will fit on one 8.5 by 11. So I can see that it's 10.72 inches wide and 8 inches tall. All right, so I'm going to ungroup my windows, going back to the layers panel. I'm going to ungroup my windows by clicking this group and ungroup button. And then I can just kind of move them around a little bit. Yeah, 10.06 inches wide and 8 inches tall, and that does fit on my cardboard. So I'm going to select the whole thing, and I'm going to attach it. And when I do that, it will change color. It'll make them all the same color. And now the other thing I do is, because I know my maker has to cut it out at least a couple of times, lately I've been duplicating this and attaching 3 layers together so it cuts it as just one. So it'll cut it 3 times, each piece 3 times, it'll score it 3 times, and it saves me time from having to go check and see if it actually cut all the way through. So you have to kind of experiment and see if that works with your particular machine. Some of them cut better. Mine's the original Maker. A Maker 3 probably has more force. Okay, I'm going to duplicate. All right, so I've got 3 copies, selecting them all, and I'm going to align them in 2 directions, vertically and horizontally. And then I click the attach button in the layers panel. And even though it's 3 sets, my machine will cut them as one, and it just simplifies things for me. But again, I know how my machine works. So if yours is a little more effective than mine, maybe not as old as my machine, you might just do it twice, or you might not even have to do it that many times. Okay, now let's go to Make. Save the project or not. I'm actually not going to save it. That looks good. I'm going to click the Continue button in the lower right-hand corner. Now I'm selecting my machine. I'm using my Maker. I actually have 2 Makers. One cuts faster than the other. That's the one I tend to use. I don't know why that would be true. All right. The cardboard I'm using is 22 point cardboard. and light chipboard works for it, works very well. So that is what I've set as one of my favorite. These are my favorite materials. So I'm using light chipboard. The other thing on my Maker, I always use a scoring stylus rather than the scoring wheel. I just think it's much simpler. If you're on an Explorer Air 2, you would use a scoring stylus anyway. And on a Cricut Joy or a Cricut Extra, you use the foil tip to function as a scoring tool to you for your machine. This design is a little bit too big for a Cricut Joy, but works well with the Cricut Joy Extra. All right, now I'm going to show you how to construct the Fairy Cottage. All right, this is the kind of what I call the Fairy House Cottage, just kind of a simple shape, a cottage shape. I made this one with kind of a wood grain. It's a little shinier than I would like, but I still like the shape and I like the design, and I love it, you know, covered with all the flowers. So I still, even if this isn't exactly what I like, it's still pretty cool. Okay, this is the basic cottage shape. So first thing, I'm making this one out of cardboard. You can easily make it out of cardstock as well, but I just think it's so much more sturdy and it's going to last longer, and I don't know. I just like cardboard, and I like to paint. If you don't like to paint, go ahead and use cardstock. Again, for the base structure, I would use 1 10-pound cardstock if you're using cardstock. This is 22-point cardboard. So it's relatively, you can kind of see, it's relatively flexible cardboard. I think it's probably a little sturdier than poster board, but you could use poster board as well. So I fold along all the score lines. Generally, I fold towards myself first because the indentation is here, and then I fold away. Fold the side tab. So that is the structure. We've got a score line on the roof, and since this is curved, the roof needs to be a little curved too. So usually after I paint it, I kind of bend it just a little bit, just kind of gently coax the fiber into a curved shape. Let me see, so you can see, so it goes like that on the roof. And this is the chimney. This is a side chimney. It goes on one of the sides, and it's a little bit hard to tell, but this side is narrower, and that's the glue tab. So you just kind of test it out. The narrower side is the one that glues together. So let's make the structure of the house first. Most of my houses are made this way with a side glue tab. This house is a little bit too large to make with the Cricut Joy, and I didn't do a variation because I'd have to shrink it down, and then I have to shrink the, keep the windows the same. It just didn't work. So you can do it with the Joy, but you would have to reduce the size because I think this is like 4.5 or 5 inches. So you'd have to reduce it by about 20%. And that means you'd have to reduce the windows and whatever decorations you're using 20% as well. Painter's tape. Most important thing is to match up the bottom. Just add a little piece there. And then you want it to be square, so that looks good. All right, these pieces have to bend too. These are support pieces. A lot of people think they have to glue them exactly on the edge, but that's not true. What they are trying to do is to keep your front and back pieces from flexing. They're just adding a structure to the house. They're not really forming the side of the roof. So first, I usually glue the top together. And push these two sides together. Make sure it's lined up right. so that it's not like shifted to one side. Make sure it's lined up. And I think I'm going to tape this too. This does not show. Remember, it's just background support. And the reason I do the top first is because I push it down a little bit so that I can glue the front and back gables to it. Now, I'm going to apply some glue to this edge. To all four sides of the, I call these roof flaps, to the roof flaps, to the support roof flaps. Remember with glue, if you are patient and let it get tacky, give it a minute or two, it will stick so much better. I find that hard to do. So I usually don't wait. Okay, so I pushed it down so it's kind of inside, but it keeps the structure strong. And you can just hold it for a minute. You could tape it if you want. You can wander around and get the glue off your fingers. But anyway, I'll just hold this for a minute. And that's the structure of it. I just think, and I did I did the options so you can do the windows in either place. I did not put the door in the center, and the reason I didn't do that is because sometimes it makes a house look like what I call house face. So you've got like a mouth and two eyes. So I really thought it looked better, a little bit asymmetric. So if you're wondering, you can put the windows on either side. I mean, two windows, and yeah, you get it. When I was constructing this version, I made a separate video clip showing how to glue on the roof and to glue on the chimney. That's what you'll see next. Now I'm ready to add the roof. Notice I've painted the underside so that when it's on the roof, when the roof is on the house, it looks green. I need to curve it to kind of match the curve. So the way I do that usually is just kind of gently bend it. So I got a little curve to my roof piece. I'm going to use quick dry tacky glue, and I'm just going to apply it along the curve of the building, the body of the house. And you notice that the support piece here doesn't actually touch the curve. Two cats are chasing each other. They're playing. If you hear ba-dum, 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 ba-dum in the background. Pretty common at my house to hear that. See what I mean? I like this glue because it stands up. So it's always ready. Oh, I'm going to go ahead and pull off some pieces of tape so I'll have them ready. They're going to help me hold so I don't have to do all the holding. Okay, so here's my kind of angled roof piece. I'm going to center it on the house so it's about equal front and back. And then just kind of squeeze it along the curve. Not so much that it like scoots out, but enough so that the curve holds. And this is the way I do the tape. I pull it on one side and then pull across. Again, making sure that the tip matches. My fingers are stained from making flowers that will go on the roof. I'm going to do some leaves and flowers. See now, so I've got it kind of taped down so it holds at the arch, and I can just kind of watch it and just kind of hold it. And I'm going to need a Q-tip to kind of mop up my excess glue. I'm going to get a little cotton swab and do that. Not too bad. And then I'm going to decorate it.
Now I'm going to add the chimney to my little cottage. Now one thing about the chimney is it's got a curve down here, and it matches the curve of the roof at about this level. So if you put it up higher, it kind of leans away, but you know, it's a fairy house, it's okay. Or it leans towards, so I'm going to try to do it more towards the middle of the curve, and actually towards the back of the house, of the roof line. So simply apply glue to the bottom of the chimney. And then just adhere it to the house. And just like when you're making the house, if you let the glue dry for just a minute, it will be much stickier and it'll adhere faster. But for the purposes of this video, I'm just going to glue it on. Okay, let me see. There. I think that looks good. And so I'm actually kind of holding it from the inside and the outside. And I've never really found a good way to tape it so that it adheres, so I just kind of hold it for a minute. And really that's all there is to the roof, to the adhering the chimney. And I just painted it with kind of a dark gray, and then a lighter gray, and then a little bit of white, just to kind of mimic some stones. I could have used a stencil, but you know, truthfully, I just didn't take the time. Okay, let's see how it does. There. And I think if I kind of lean it like this, it'll dry well. So that's the chimney on the Fairy Cottage.